So thank you, everybody. Roger Bullen, as Andy said, from Rosslyn Data Technologies. Hopefully you can gather from our name what we do. Data, I think it's slipping off here. Data is one of the fastest growing assets out there in the market as we stand. Time and time again, we read about big data and how that data and that commodity is getting greater and greater. Our clients, and we'll give you some staggering stats as we go through the presentation, identify the amount of the volume of data that is being generated day in, day out by business to business. Often people refer to Rosslyn as a big data company. I don't like that term because I think it's overused. And I think that we're not big data. We're focused on a very specific area of data. And we focused on the supply chain and the supply chain analytics. Why have we done that? Our background and our history was in spend analytics, and that's where we saw the biggest bang for the buck, and we saw a market opportunity somewhere in the region, and it depends whether you read Gartner, whether you read Forrester, or whoever analyst you look at, somewhere between $12 billion in market size dollars, $12 billion in market size, up to $20 billion in market size, and growing year on year on year. Data, as I said, is a valuable asset. However, it's a bit like oil. If you can't dig it out of the ground, it's worthless. So getting the data out is key to what you do to your business. Hugh is Roslyn's Chief Data Officer and one of the founders. So he's going to talk about how we get data, what we do with it, how we cleanse it, how we enrich it. But we're very much focused on the supply chain, as I said. There are 4 key elements to that supply chain, and we've developed our own proprietary cloud-based SaaS, software as a service, solution that enable the procurement experts and procurement departments out there in the world's largest firms to use our technology, gather that data together and turn, and I always use the oil field because if some of you, I'm sure, would have flipped through the presentation. There's a childlike drawing of an oil refinery, which is getting data out of whatever it is, these swamps, these lakes, and turning it into a valuable asset. So we've developed the Rosslyn Analytics Procurement Information Database that enables us to deliver true value and true insights from that data. Hugh will take you through how we do that. He says, if I click on the button. So, Hugh, do you like to?
Thank you very much. I'll keep it, again, we've only got 20 minutes, and we're going to talk about some things which have a...
And we are in the way of a glass of red wine.
And we are in the way of wine, and I do appreciate that, so thank you. Just the 4 phases, or the 4 areas, which are obvious in supply chain that we work with our clients on. The first one, going in a logical sequence, is supplier onboarding. That's quite an easy entry point for most clients. They've got suppliers. They onboard them as best they can from multiple sources across the globe, and they try to coalesce them somewhere in the middle, and then they realize there's a PO box name, there's other information, they have no ISO certification, the guy's changed the name, the parent's been taken over twice, etc., and they don't know about this until something goes wrong. So the method of supplier onboarding, to make it very easy, to make it transparent, and to integrate it into everybody's ability to analyze and appreciate the risks associated with various suppliers and their capabilities, is the first step, which often has a very easy sell, a very easy walk in the door. You have a problem there, we know you do, and here is our solution. The next one is supply information management. You've now onboarded the supplier, you understand who the supplier is, you've agreed to potentially work with them, they're gone to the next stage. You now want to know what the ongoing risks are with that supplier. So risk scores, parenting, board changes, geopolitical risks, other information from social media or, shall we say, sentiment analysis, as they say, may be relevant at this point for you to appreciate from when you first got your supplier to what the supplier is now doing. Now, supplier risk is a very important factor in any supply chain organization or any supply chain process, and it's quite often overlooked, and you only find out 6 months later after suddenly the credit score goes to 0 and you're the last one to know, and you've got an issue with the products and services. The next one, I'll just jump side to the right here, contract management. You've got your supplier, you've got a dashboard telling you all the wonderful things about the supplier. You've also got a contract management solution That contract has now been embedded within that supplier portal, and you can now appreciate what the terms and conditions are, what the risks are, what the contract was actually made in. In other words, does it have a GDPR component because GDPR's come in? Does it have any risk components which have now changed due to legislation or anything else? So the contract management, the supplier information, and the supplier onboarding process form one to control your relationship with that supplier. All those then feed into the spend analytics. Now, we are a spend analytics company. That's what we specialize in. That means that we can now take data on a very large scale from a multitude of sources for most clients, integrate it into a data warehouse, if you want, in the cloud, and allow us to analyze and understand the efficiencies, risks, potential savings, etc. of that data set. The 5 areas which are very key, and there's one area which is always overlooked and ignored by every single one of our clients until they realize what the problem is, it's the extraction and integration. It's pretty much, I've never come across a client who's done it right yet, and we've got many clients over the years. We have developed tools and technologies to make sure that we can extract the data easily. Roger's allusion to oil is exactly that. We've got tools that go and pull data from sources very easily, very inexpensively as far as processing time is concerned, without any security risks. That's taken us a long time to develop. It's one of the key USPs of the company, and that is very important, because everybody who has a project ignores that piece because it's technology and I don't like it and it's boring. I want the dashboard with the pretty pictures that tells me how well I'm doing. So between those two, the integration and visualization, we have the cleansing. The cleansing is understanding the quality of the data, going back to your supplier onboarding. As soon as I look at data, I can look at the vendor master file and I can tell you fairly quickly if that company is in a good place or not. We then enrich the data, having seen it, cleansed it, got it more or less ready for the show. We then enrich it and find some interesting pieces of information which the client probably wasn't aware of. And I've got examples of clients having information in Japanese and they never translated it, so they never knew that 10% of their risk was with the Japanese supplier, because nobody ever looked at the number because it was in Japanese, and I'm sure it's not important. We have those kind of, in the real world, and even with billion-dollar companies, there are very large gaps in their knowledge and understanding if they don't go through this process. We then analyze it, we are then able to show a lot of information through data mining, and then we visualize it to make it really, really easy for anyone to understand, who can plot, who can see a graph, who can understand a pie chart. So a lot of those things are built around the ability to get the data and then to provide an easy to digest solution of efficiency, savings, and capabilities. So we go to the next. Examples of some of our clients. I'll only pick a couple here just to make an example. For example, Heineken provide us with 10 million rows of data per day. So we have an overnight process. Most, shall we say, companies in this space work on a monthly or quarterly basis. We now work on a daily basis. Our clients expect us to work on a daily basis. I wouldn't say it's near live, but I'd say it's pretty close. We also have over 100 locations from where the data is stored and comes from. It is aggregated in certain areas, but there are a multitude of challenges there. We also, as you can see, work with some defense contractors and some engineering companies that have a very high security issue, a very high security potential. We need to align to that through living in MS Azure, which is a cloud solution, one of the big ones. We're able to leverage their, if you want, their external protection, their external capabilities, and we also have our own internal security standards as well that we work with. Just looking at this, you can see data is generic. Every single one of those streams thinks their data is unique. The pharmaceuticals will say, well, you know, whatever you've done for engineering doesn't matter. Pharmaceutical is so special. Our data is so unique. You'll never find the same problem in their data as you do in ours, or in ours as you do in theirs. So therefore, we need a special version of your solution. In reality, 95% of data issues, or those issues that companies have, are exactly the same. They just don't appreciate how dependent they are on data in some areas, and they don't fully appreciate what can be done in a generic way to make sure we can deliver a standardized solution to all these clients equally, with some configuration, some tweaks as well over and above to reflect their own verticals.
Just to emphasise a point there that Hugh said very quickly, Heineken deliver 3.5 billion rows of data to us per annum for us to consolidate, manipulate, enrich, refresh, day in, day out. And they expect that to work seamlessly, and it does. and there is zero human intervention in all of that process. It's all a robotic process, automation.
Yeah.
One other thing that we do, because some of our clients, we have another client who's not on there, who wants to know how many chips are delivered to each of their restaurants every day. And we have that data available down to the truck, to the amount of bags of potatoes that are delivered, so they can measure and compare. So all of this data is captured day in, day out, and transferred, visualized, and made available to the client in a seamless fashion. Now, this is the slide I like. I do call it a child's eyes drawing of what Rosslyn's all about. But it is quite key. Data, if it's buried in your ERP system, if it's buried in a spreadsheet, if it's buried in your people database, if it's buried anywhere, has no value. You've got to get it out of the system. You've got to put it through a process where it's refreshed, it's cleansed, it's added to, and it's refined. And then it becomes available to your teams and gives you true value and true insights to the fortune that's hidden within that data cycle.
I'll just talk a little bit about the process in a little bit more detail. There are two components. There's a structured and unstructured. Structured is your numbers, your well-known, understood data, your financials, if you want. Your unstructured is your voice, your documents, the sentiment analysis, other information you may have as well that you want to coagulate or coalesce with the data which is going to go through the refinery. At the bottom piece there, dynamic classification, that's where the client's business logic occurs. In other words, we're recreating, in some instances, the data warehouse of the client in a matter of hours, in a matter of days. What they've spent years and years doing, we are recreating that, but we do need to understand a little bit about how they see the world, otherwise we'll be working quite long to try and recreate all of their knowledge and all their understanding. We then aggregate that data. Some of our clients have over 100 sources, which means 100 extraction feeds coming in to suddenly meld together. So the word aggregate sounds quite straightforward. When you've got 100 variations of that theme to go into a standardized schema, it's a little bit of a challenge. And we do that in an automatic way at the moment at a tune of we can do it up to a tune of about 1 million rows per minute with certain data sets, which allows us to reach out to a lot of these areas, a lot of these different systems, and join them all together. I won't go through the process again about cleansing and enriching. You've seen that before. The business rules is key. We were doing, shall we say, cognitive
augmented
intelligence, but more on the shall we say supervised learning before. Everyone's been hearing this in the last 2 or 3 years. We've been doing it for about 5-7 years. By developing a solution which allows the recipients of the information to then interact with that data and make changes to it on the fly dynamically, and then see the results and make it an iterative loop which allows them to reinforce the quality of that data, because the data, you need to have the people who understand the data to affect the data to make sure it's correct. So the experts in every client who understand the data, who understand that part number or that particular type of data, can actually dynamically enrich it and dynamically classify it, so that it replays back to them. Once they're happy with it, it then gets distributed out to all the different reports by data mining or data visualization. But that area of the kind of reinforcing loop is absolutely critical. And again, with the extraction tool and this loop are two of the key differentiators we have in the marketplace compared to other players. Again, I won't go through too much detail, just to say augmented intelligence is more the way I see the world, because artificial intelligence is really the concept of someone proving Turing correct that one day we'll be able to get a computer that can simulate a human. We're nowhere near there yet, as you can see by all the challenges that people have had in developing various automated processes. So what we're looking at is how to leverage what is out there that we can use genuinely to impact and improve the client's understanding of his data and our visualization of that data. We can go through, there's natural language analytics, which is understanding meaning. There's benchmarking is a key one. Most of our clients are still really looking at the fundamentals. I know there's all these tools out there and we can look at all the different technologies out there. Most clients are saying, just get my data, put it into one place and tell me about it. That's fundamentally what they're looking for. The benchmarking aspect is quite important because they want to understand how they are in price variance, how they are compared to their sector, how they are compared to other platforms. Predictively also, what is the risk, where am I going, what's the challenge, how do I impact this, how do I make sure that I mitigate and minimize my risk. We play with that, and again, the other one, risk modeling. Those are really some of the key deliverables we put behind the scenes, so our clients, when they see their graphics, can then drill through and understand how the graphics were developed, how they were evolved, and why they're correct and accurate.
One thing I would add is we're using some of the the government grants to work with universities such as Liverpool and Manchester, who actually give us their AI graduates to actually work with us to develop the latest thinking about how do you use natural language processing, chatbots, artificial intelligence, as it were, in the current market, what's currently happening, and push and drive change through our organisation. And that's really adding an enormous amount of value to our clients, enriching their data and telling them this is what we think is going to happen to your data based on the past and based on the social media feeds that we're picking from other data sources that we have access to. Forrester, this is quite an old chart, probably a couple of years ago, but it hasn't moved on. Our competitors and the space is full of some very large companies. Rosslyn is fairly small in comparison to some of those, but we were scored as one of the most comprehensive supply chain platforms out there in the market. There was the other one is a Russian company whose name I can't pronounce, but there was only two who had the full suite of data analytics and supply chain performance measurement, etc. So we were very proud to be on that chart to start with, but to be given such a high credential from Forrester was also very good news.
Now, one thing we're doing to complete the loop, and that takes into consideration all the postgraduates that we're getting from various universities to help us do machine learning and analytics, is we're now facilitating, making it easier for the enablement of a data lake. Nothing really exciting in that, that's just normal stuff. The idea is, for example, we have an airline which currently has 3 data lakes where they've stored all their data over the years, and they're struggling to get that data to talk to each other. We are creating a data lake to receive all those 3 data lakes into one place to do our analysis. It's a very large amount of data. We're talking terabytes over a period of time with a refresh cycle, which is going to be weekly. And some of the data daily. The ability to simply deliver this as a service to a large organization we have several in the pipeline where this is being discussed as well, where we're looking at similar amounts of data, if not more, than was mentioned by Heineken, on a regular basis with a daily refresh. That ability to do that takes the whole of this industry, the whole of this analysis industry, to a next level, which is large amounts of data, near live view, with all the capabilities of machine learning analytics and both internal data movement. But the real exciting thing is also on the right-hand side there, it's the movement of data that affects your business that you're not currently capturing on a near live basis. So it's all very well having all this information in, and you understand who your suppliers are, you understand your contracts, you see what your spend is, you understand the whole cross-currencies, you understand all the risks and everything else. You've suddenly got a whole lot of information about the materials, the products, the commodities, the price movement in commodity, all those different aspects which may affect you, which you don't normally pick up until a long time after, can now be fed into the data lake and used dynamically by our clients for them to understand their risks and their potential for taking greater, shall we say, taking a lead in the marketplace in their particular area through this technology and the assimilation of this technology. It's made to look quite straightforward, but this is quite a, shall we say, challenging area, which is only, it's a step change, which is only now being made available on a commercial basis generally to clients. Before, this was only available to very large, sophisticated corporates or governments. So that's really one of the key areas which we are very excited about, and I'm working with my team to provide that to 2 or 3 clients at the moment, and 3 or 4 in the pipeline as well.
So very quickly, switching to the financials. We're a fairly small company. Our revenues for a full year will be circa 7.5 to 8 million. Our first half for this year, these were the published results that came out in November. Last November we released these. With our revenues growing half year compared to half year, up by 11%. We expect that to follow through to the full year. Our gross profit is very high, at around the 75 to 80%, and we expect that to be where we maintain our gross profits. We're a data business, after all said and done. Scale and repeatability are all about how you get that throughput. Our operating EBITDA loss, you can see there that we've been getting better and better, and those improvements, that revenue that we're generating is falling right through. The cost of building the platform, we've written off as we've gone through. We've not capitalized any of that investment. It's all been straight through to the bottom line. We've managed to reduce our cash burn year on year significantly to a position where this year we expect to be cash burn neutral, if I use that terminology, and that's without raising any further cash from operating. One key point is we sell annual contracts, or we sell multi-annual contracts, multi-year contracts, and normally we start the year with 60 to 70% of our total revenue for the year already sold, contracted, and therefore it's adding new clients and adding new targets year on year that we expect to do. And our average contract values have increased. At the time of flotation, we were sub 50k, and that was back in 2014. We were quite considerably sub 50k, and we've grown that year on year, and now we're hitting an annual average revenue per contract of about £85,000. There's a few big ticket numbers in there, such as the Heinekens, the BAEs, and the KLMs that make a considerable difference, but our average contract is still around £85,000. 2019 is a turning point. Yeah, we will be cash flow break even, and we will be profitable. Yeah, the growth lines there are pretty impressive, especially the EBITDA one. In it's there was a change in revenue recognition policy due to IFRS at 2017, which reduced the revenue a bit and therefore impacted the EBITDA. But it smoothed out the revenue line. We did restate some of those numbers. But again, the key point, we opened 2019, we opened 2020 with 70 to 75% of our revenue already pre-sold. And on an annual basis, our contracted revenue does represent 75%, 25% being professional services and or new sales. A quick reminder of our clients. They are all well-known high street names or brands. Our target market is those clients with very complex data issues, not ones that are simple to resolve, and hence an average client there will have at least £500 million worth of turnover. And for a company of Rosslyn size to be punching in with these clients, that gives us great credibility, and it gives us great strength that we can go in and we can compete with the likes of Ariba and SAP and win Heineken. We can go and win Diageo and McVitie's. And some of these clients have stuck with us for, Heineken was only last year, Diageo has been with us since 2010, 2011. Yeah, our churn rates are very low, and our clients are very loyal to us, and we deliver tremendous value to them. And our ROI, it's difficult to measure because the clients have to drive that change. And if you have someone like Babcock, their ROI was in weeks because they bought a company and were able to use the synergies of purchasing very quickly. Heineken thought that we paid for ourselves in the first 4 months of operation. We can't prove that. That's their number and their stat.
Anglo as well.
Okay. So, over for any questions.
Roger, can you hear me?
Yes,
so
Chris.
So we're talking earlier on about your route to market. So
Yes.
Can you talk about some of the big names you work with that facilitate introductions?
Well, yes, I mean, we have both a direct and a partner channel, but our partner channel is predominantly through an introduction with us still doing the sale behind that. So our partners that we work with are the Microsofts of this world who use us because they look at the Azure platform that our tool sits on, so they're getting benefit from it. So they'll introduce us. Microsoft actually introduced us to BAE Systems, which is the global enterprise, not just UK, it's US and UK. But Genpact, which is an accounts payable BPO, and PwC use us, and they recommend us for their procurement solutions where they're doing a procurement transformation. Deloitte's use us and Accenture use us. So the big four accounting firms or consulting firms use us, and then the occasional Microsoft and Genpact.
Our engine's also embedded in the D&B
Yes.
solution.
What's the average sales cycle from the first contact to actually implementing the system? And also the second question, do you have any examples of where you might have displaced one of the majors by going and walking in one day and then having a discussion and displacing an SAP or
I'll answer the first one. The sales cycle ranges from 3 to 9 months for the full sales cycle from the first engagement. We have the odd one that can be done very quickly, but that tends to be where we've got a friendly buyer who's used us before, knows what they're getting, and we had one of those, and it takes sort of 2 months to go from soup to nuts, including the contract. But I would say the average is 6 months normally for a sales cycle. Delivery and implementation. Our constraint tends to be the client's availability of their IT resources to have the data lakes or the data repositories available for us. So what we tend to do is we will go for the biggest bang for the buck and focus on getting them live on their first data repository, bring that up, and then add the others over time. Quickest we've done, we did 15 systems for De La Rue in 2 weeks, and they were live immediately after that. But normally something of 15 systems that we're extracting data would take up to 6 months. And on the second part of the question, which I've forgotten now, but
Displacing SAP.
yeah. So have we ever? No, we've never. We don't displace the systems that hold the data that we're coming from. We're picking the data up. What we have done is displace competition. People like Ariba, who had a spend analytics solution and a catalog solution. We've been able to say you're not using that catalog solution. Ariba is a very expensive tool. Roslyn's better positioned.
And that applies for Cooper as well, and also applies for professional services like A.T. Kearney. And there's some other players in the marketplace like Zycus and several others who have certain elements of their portfolio is where we are. But we are appreciated by both our competitors and the market generally as the people with the best technology. We may not have a full suite like Zycus or do specialization like Ariba or Cooper, but when they want this particular solution, which is going to give them an ROI, give them visibility, give them efficiencies and savings, they come to us first, and then we often have to share that pie with others.
So, how do you charge? How do you decide how much to charge? Are you charging enough? And sort of, what's the average?
We're never charging enough.
Well,
But
how do you get there then?
yeah, so no, we try to do value-based pricing, and we look at and we do have a model which looks at the number of data systems that we're extracting from, and we're looking at the number of days involved in taking that data out and the volumes of data. But we do look at what is the client's propensity to pay, what is the value, what is the competition offering, can we make a decent margin on getting to that price? So someone like Heineken, we knew it was going to be a huge implementation, and we know what the market will bear as a price point for that daily refresh. So we priced it to meet that requirement and to cover our day rates for the implementation.
The average length of contract?
Average length of a contract is about 2.5 years. We tend to sign 3-year deals, but we have 1-year deals that happen from time to time. We tend not to allow exits for convenience. You know, they're a plague that I don't like, and therefore if someone wants that in their contract, there's a heavy premium for exiting after the first year or the second year.
Roger, I attended the 2017 AGM and I recall asking a question.
Did I answer it?
Referring to my notes, and I
Right.
want to see how you've done since then. You just made the Integrity acquisition.
Yes.
I think that's the name of the company.
It is, yes.
And I think I asked what percentage of your revenue was recurring versus non-recurring for the business as it was then, and
Yes.
what it was for Integrity. You answered 70-30
Yes.
for the existing business and 30-70 for the Integrity business.
Correct.
Sounds like you're very far down the path of getting there, if not completely there, from a number you mentioned earlier. What is the obstacle for you going beyond 70% to 80% to 90%, etc.?
Because, well, the obstacle is that a lot of our revenue, even when we sell the SaaS solution, we charge a professional services for implementation. And that tends to be on the total value of a contract, it represents about 25%. I look at it that, if we sign a £100,000 a year license fee, let me call it that, for a client, it'll be 100 grand to implement and then 3 years worth of 100 grand in the license fees.
So the 100 grand is not considered as a recurring...
No, I don't. That's a one-off professional services for the guy actually going in and writing the script to get the data out of the data lake. That's a professional service, is a non-repeatable. It's the license fee that's repeatable. But yeah, so the acquisition of Integrity, we've done what we said, and we managed to. I think we said 850 was our synergies in savings, and we blew 1.2 million out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, could you give us a bit of colour on your employees? I mean, how many people are involved in developing your software? Is it all developed in-house? Do you outsource any elements of the software? What kind of people do you hire? Where do you get them from? Where they're all based?
Well, yes, all the software is developed in-house. We obviously leverage what we can. So, for example, we're not going to develop our own dashboarding technology. There's plenty out there that can be useful, from Click to Tableau to Power BI, whichever one we want. So we're not going to do that. We don't develop, for example, there are some details of the connectors which link to some of the systems. We don't go and create that. We get those of SAP accredited, experienced connectors. We write all the code around it. All the development of the platform is totally ours. It's developed by my team in-house over the last many years. The size of the team has varied between in the high 20s to the mid-teens, depending on where we were in the development cycle of various platforms. The best people we get, to be honest, have been word of mouth references from our existing employees, because they're quite specialized in the way they work, how they work. They obviously have a network of people of a like-minded type. We also do get, we have quite also a quite severe kind of interview process by the techies talking to techies, and again making them go through hoops. And we get some very highly qualified PhDs in optimization of mathematical algorithms that come along to do just Q&A, for example, because they just want to understand the technology. They're just out of university. So we do get the new doctors or the new PhD graduates. We also get people who have a specialist skill that we find because of their work in GitHub, which is a repository for code. We look at the code in GitHub and go, that guy can write code, okay, fine, we're going to grab him, we're going to see where he is. We had one who was actually based in Cuba, and we brought him over because he was that good, so we got his whole family and everybody over because he was good. He unfortunately was poached by Goldman Sachs about 3-4 years later, but I can accept that as a kind of progression for him. So it's not, we don't have a straight pipeline. It's really a question of where we are in the cycle of what we're developing, who the best guys are in the market who are available, and then usually attracted by the other people in the team, and they're attracted by what we're doing and the fact that it's cutting edge and the fact that it's deployable and immediately, whatever they do is going to be used immediately with live clients. So that's exciting for them.
Well, there's good availability of suitable, qualified, skilled people.
There's a lot of people with the right buzzwords and the right theoretical qualifications. Also the mindset. A lot of them can't work in teams. If you know techies, as I do, some of them are brilliant, but you can't put them in front of a client ever. They can barely work. They love to work as a team, but it's the team they want to work with, and they become quite picky about who they work. So you have to have somebody who's got slightly rounded personality who can actually work with a team you may not totally like all the time.
So you can get people you like.
We can get people,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
they're not as many out there as they may appear to be, that actually will work with us seamlessly.
And it is one of the reasons why we work with Liverpool and Manchester universities, because we get people who work with us, maybe on a short term, and then want to come and do a couple more years with us, purely because of what we're doing is challenging the way that the industry is working.
Great, well, thank you very much, Roger and Hugh.
Thank you.